She doesn't need validation from men. She doesn't chase attention. She doesn't even seem interested. And that's exactly why every man around her becomes obsessed with her. There's a psychological reason this happens, and it has nothing to do with playing hard to get. The truth is far more complex. It reveals something about human psychology that most people spend their entire lives running from. It's about power, perception, and the invisible architecture that shapes how we see ourselves and each other. What happens when a woman stops seeking approval from the one group she was conditioned to seek it from? What transforms inside her? And why does the world react with such intensity to her indifference? The answer might change how you see relationships and yourself forever. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that half your life has been spent performing for an audience that never actually asked you to perform. Not because anyone forced you explicitly, but because the conditioning was so subtle, so woven into every message you received, you never questioned it. From childhood, you absorbed a simple equation. Your value equals your desirability. Your worth is measured by attention. Your success is validated by male approval. Then something happens. A moment, a realization, a breaking point. And suddenly you stop caring. Not in a dramatic, vengeful way, not as a strategy to get attention, but genuinely, at a molecular level, you realize that this entire framework, the one you've been operating within for decades, was a prison you didn't even know was a prison. Here's the paradox that nobody talks about. The moment a woman truly stops seeking male validation, she becomes exponentially more valuable to men. This isn't psychology dressed up as manipulation. This is actual neurobiology colliding with deep human psychology. When someone stops seeking your approval, something in your brain registers it as a threat. Your status becomes uncertain, your control becomes questionable, and humans are hardwired to pursue what we cannot easily obtain. But that's just the surface. The deeper question is far more unsettling. What does it take for a woman to reach that point? And what changes inside her when she does? To understand the woman who doesn't care about men, you first have to understand what she's rejecting. Psychologically, women are conditioned from infancy through a process that Carl Jung might have called collective unconscious messaging. But it's not mystical. It's measurable. It's observable. It's everywhere. From the moment a girl can understand language, she receives a consistent narrative. Her appearance matters more than her intellect. Her ability to attract matters more than her ability to achieve. Her relationship status matters more than her actual status. This isn't a conspiracy. It's cultural architecture built over centuries, reinforced by media, family systems, and peer groups. Evolutionary psychologists argue that this stems from reproductive biology. Women's reproductive value was historically tied to youth and fertility, so attraction became a proxy for survival. Men's status was tied to resources and protection, so achievement became their value marker. These biological realities created social structures that persisted long after their original purpose became irrelevant. But here's what's crucial. Knowing the origin doesn't dissolve the conditioning. A woman can intellectually understand that her value isn't determined by male attention and still feel the emotional weight of that conditioning every single day. She can know it's irrational and still feel the anxiety when she's not being noticed. She can reject the framework and still feel her nervous system activate when a man she desires seems indifferent to her. This is the psychological trap that most women never escape. Until something breaks. The woman who reaches the point of genuine indifference has usually experienced something that shattered the entire system. Sometimes it's trauma. realizing that seeking male validation didn't protect her from male harm. Sometimes it's success, achieving her goals and realizing that male approval never actually contributed to her accomplishments. Sometimes it's simple exhaustion, years of performing, striving, and molding herself, only to feel empty regardless of how much attention she received. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote about the concept of slave morality. The idea that when you're dependent on someone else's approval, you've essentially made them your master. A woman who doesn't care about men has, in essence, freed herself from this dynamic. She's rejected the role of supplicant and reclaimed her own authority. But this rejection comes with a cost that few people understand. And here's what happens neurologically when a woman shifts from seeking male validation to becoming indifferent to it. Her dopamine system rewires. The reward circuits that lit up when she received male attention no longer activate with the same intensity. This is both liberation and loss. She's freed from the addiction, but she's also freed from a source of pleasure that society told her was essential to her identity. Her threat detection system calms. Studies in neuroscience show that women who are chronically anxious about their desirability have elevated cortisol levels, the stress hormone. When that concern dissolves, her nervous system moves from constant vigilance to genuine safety. This changes everything about how she moves through the world. Her cognitive bandwidth expands. Psychologists estimate that women spend an average of 20 to 30 hours per week managing their appearance, thinking about how they're perceived, and strategizing about relationships. When that mental load vanishes, the cognitive resources that were being consumed suddenly become available for everything else: ambition, creativity, intellectual pursuits, purpose. But the social consequences are immediate and often misunderstood. When a woman stops performing for male attention, men don't experience this as liberation for her. They experience it as a rejection of them. The attention she's no longer offering was attention they felt entitled to. Her indifference feels like a statement about their value, rather than a statement about her freedom. This creates a predictable dynamic. Men become either obsessed or dismissive, and there's rarely a middle ground. Some interpret her indifference as a challenge, proof that they can win her over with the right approach. Others interpret it as arrogance and become hostile. Few can simply accept that she's not available for that particular transaction. This is where the psychology becomes particularly interesting. Research on mate selection shows that humans are drawn to what psychologists call costly signals. If something is difficult to obtain, our brain interprets it as more valuable. A woman who doesn't need male validation becomes, paradoxically, more attractive because she's not traditionally competing for attention. But she's not doing it for that reason. That's the crucial distinction most people miss. The woman who truly doesn't care about men isn't playing a strategy. She's transcended the game entirely. And that transcendence is what makes her magnetic to some and threatening to others. The shift from seeking validation to not needing it isn't gradual for most women. It's an inversion that happens suddenly, often triggered by a specific event or realization. Sometimes it's the moment a woman realizes that a man she wanted never actually wanted her back, and that this rejection didn't diminish her actual value. Sometimes it's the moment she achieves something significant and realizes that the celebration from men mattered far less than her own satisfaction. Sometimes it's simpler. She just gets tired. Once this shift happens, a woman's entire relationship to her own identity changes. She stops asking, "Do I look attractive?" and starts asking, "Do I like how I look?" She stops wondering, "What does he think of me?" and starts wondering, "What do I think of him?" She stops performing versions of herself designed to be palatable and starts being whoever she actually is. This is where the real power emerges. When a woman is no longer filtering her personality through the lens of male desirability, she becomes clearer, more direct, more authentic. Her standards become non-negotiable because she's not desperate for connection. She's selective about it. Her ambitions become unapologetic because she's not trying to remain attractive by appearing non-threatening. Philosophically, this is what Jean-Paul Sartre meant by authentic existence. She's no longer defining herself through others' gaze, and she's defining herself through her own choices, values, and vision. But here's what most people don't understand. This isn't about hating men or rejecting connection. It's about shifting the power dynamic fundamentally. She's no longer the person seeking. She's the person being sought. She's no longer the one trying to be chosen. She's the one doing the choosing. This changes her magnetism completely. Men often describe a woman like this as having confidence. But that word is too simplistic. It's not confidence in the sense of believing she's superior. It's certain. It's the certainty of someone who knows her own value and isn't negotiating it based on external approval. The psychology of a woman who doesn't care about men reveals something profound about human nature that extends far beyond gender dynamics. It reveals that the most powerful people in any social hierarchy are those who have transcended the need for that hierarchy's validation. The CEO, who doesn't need anyone's approval, is more respected than the one constantly seeking it. The artist who creates for herself rather than for an audience's applause produces more authentic work. The person who has simply stopped needing what the system offers becomes, paradoxically, what the system values most. This is the central paradox of power. You only truly possess it when you've stopped chasing it. For centuries, women were told that power came through men, through being chosen by them, being protected by them, being validated by them. But the women who have actually accumulated power in their own right discovered something different. Their power came from withdrawing from that transaction entirely. It's not about rejection. It's about recognition. Recognition that the game itself was rigged, and the only way to win is to stop playing. But here's where it becomes even deeper. The woman who doesn't care about men isn't actually free of conditioning. She's simply chosen a different kind of conditioning. Instead of seeking external validation, she's seeking internal alignment. Instead of performing for others, she's performing for herself. This is progress, but it's important to see it clearly. She hasn't transcended the human need for meaning and purpose. She's simply redirected it inward. And that's when something remarkable happens. When a woman's source of validation moves from external, male approval, to internal, self-alignment, her entire neurochemistry shifts. She's no longer dopamine dependent on others' reactions. She's generating her own neurochemical reward system through achievement, growth, and authentic connection. This is what neuroscientists call intrinsic motivation. And it's exponentially more powerful than extrinsic motivation. A woman driven by her own vision accomplishes far more than a woman driven by someone else's approval. But the deepest truth, the one that most people never articulate, is this. The woman who doesn't care about men isn't actually rejecting men. She's rejecting the version of herself that was constructed to serve men's desires. And in doing so, she becomes far more attractive to the men who are actually capable of seeing her. Because now, any attention she gives is genuine. Any affection she offers is real. Any time she spends with a man is a choice, not a transaction. The men she attracts aren't men who need her to validate them through pursuit. They're men who are also secure enough to accept being chosen rather than doing all the choosing. They're men who recognize that genuine connection requires both people to show up as whole, autonomous individuals rather than roles in a predetermined script. This is what's so threatening to certain men and so liberating to others. She's changed the entire game. The psychology of a woman who doesn't care about men isn't actually about men at all. It's about a woman's relationship to her own power. For most of her life, she was taught that her power came from being desirable, from being chosen, from attracting and maintaining male interest. But this was presented as her ultimate achievement, finding a man who would validate her existence. But the woman who reaches genuine indifference discovers something that changes everything. Her power was never actually dependent on any of that. It was always inside her. The validation she was seeking externally was validation she could generate internally. The security she thought she needed from a man was security she could build within herself. The identity she thought she needed to construct for male approval was an identity she could define for herself. And when that realization settles in, truly settles in, not as an intellectual concept, but as lived experience, everything shifts. She moves differently. She speaks differently. She chooses differently. She's no longer operating from scarcity. She's operating from abundance. She's no longer trying to be enough for someone else. She's already enough for herself. This is what creates the paradox. The woman who stops seeking male validation becomes more valuable in the market of male attention. But she's transcended that market. She's no longer playing in an economy where her worth is determined by others' desire for her. She's created her own economy, one where her value is non-negotiable, and that's a power that no external validation can ever match. The question now becomes, what is she going to do with that power?